Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's Daf Yomi. Chulin Daf Yotes. We begin 16 lines from the top. Amar Rav Huna. So he quotes Amar Rav Asi. This connects to yesterday. So he did the shechita, but he veered out of the acceptable, zone. There's a certain area in the kana and the trachea and the windpipe where you meant to do the cut, the shechita, and he went out of that zone. That is called hagrama. One of the disqualifications, one of the psulim of shechita is hagrama, higrim. So you can either veer out, start inside, veer out, or start outside, veer in, or do the entire shechita outside. Too close to the throat, too far down the trachea, beyond the acceptable zone. So, we had a machlokes. If he did mostly in the right place, but veered out at the end, so roiv was okay, but just a small percentage was not. According to the Chachamim, it's got to be 100% in the right place. If even a drop is outside of the range, it's possible. Whereas according to Rabbi Yasi, Rabbi Yehuda, it's all about majority, like anywhere else in the Torah. We follow Raiv. If Raiv was okay, then it's okay. Amar Rav Huna Rav Asi, machlokes. This whole discussion, this whole dispute. This that Rabbi Yasi, Rabbi Yehuda, accepts this shechita because of the majority, because of the Raiv factor. That's only in the following instance, when the hagrama was at the end of the shechita. So it was mostly okay, at the end he veered out. And over here, according to him, we say it's okay, it's roiv. V'sheshachat shnei shlish, he did a proper shechita in the proper place, on the first 2/3. So, 66% was okay. V'higrim shlish, at the last part, the last third, he veered out. He went too close to the throat. Here is the machlokes. The Rabbanon, they hold, they savri, kula shchita ba'inam b'tabas gedela. That's not sufficient. You need that the entire shchita, 100% of the cut, should be applied to the proper area. The tabas gedela, in this case, the large ring, which we discussed yesterday. And if it's partially out, it's no good. Rabbi Yasi. But Rabbi Yehuda Savar, Rubai Kekulai, most, that's enough. That's like the entire thing was done properly. We follow the majority factor. But that's when the hagrama took place at the end. Aval, however, Higrim Shlish, V'shachat Shnei Shlish, suppose it was exactly the opposite. The hagrama was done at the beginning. The first third was Higrim, was outside of the area, and then he veered in to the kosher zone, v'shachat shnei shlish, and did the next 2/3 properly. In this case, all agree it's possible. Divrei hakol pesulo. You know why? The chinafka chiyusa. When did the chiyus? When did the life force of the animal end? So we know that it happens at roiv, right? When you go past 50%, that's the termination of life. You only have to cut 51%, right? Roiv of the siman. So let's evaluate. What happened? Where was the animal holding at 51%? When the cut reached the majority point of the siman. Where are we holding? How much of it was done properly? How much not? So let's think. If the first 33% was higrim, so when he pushed further, now in the kosher place, but he only got a very little amount of that 51% to be properly done. 33% was out. And only from 33 to 51% is kosher. So the chinaf kechiyusa, when the chiyus terminated, you didn't have 51% of proper shechita. But we need ruba b'shchita. It should be 51, mostly b'shchita. But like you don't have it in this case. right? Rashi says that the Lashon Ruba Shchita means that the Raiv, which actually makes the Shchita happen, the 51% of that siman that's being cut has to be done properly. In this case, the first third wasn't. So that's Rav Huna quoting Rav Asi. Amar le Rav Chizda, responds Rav Chizda, exactly the opposite. Adarab, just the opposite. Leima mar ifcha, why don't you say the other way around? Machlekes b'shehigrim shlish v'shachat shnei shlish. If anything, the machlekes, the discussion in the Mishnah, is exactly in this case. We started with Hagrama, and then Shchita in the last 2/3. Here there's room for discussion. Rabbi Yosef Rida Savar, he says, it's okay. Why? Despite having started with Hagrama, it's okay. You know why? Because how much Hagrama took place? Only a third. It's like a person who encounters the kana, the trachea, half split. Half split is not a problem yet. Rashi explains there's no din of treifa yet. It's still okay. Because only if it goes past the halfway mark is it considered severely injured to the point that it's called a treifa and it's possible. So if the kana was just split, naturally split, okay, split up until half, the animal's still kosher. And now if you should take a knife and just push it a little further past 51%, it's a proper shchita. Here as well. The hagrama took place initially was like a split kana. Ignore the fact that it was done improper. It's a broken kana, but only a small part is broken. It's still okay. And now when he continued on and did a proper shchita, and he pushed it and cut it till 51%, it's okay. There was no disqualifying cut there. That should disqualify the shchita, even though technically only properly cut only a small amount, but he pushed it over the 51% mark. That's Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. And therefore he accepts the shchita. Rabbanan, Sabri, they disagree, Rabbanan say. Hasam mokim shchita. Big difference between the split kana. Sure, he didn't do the shchita, it was split naturally, and he just pushed it a bit further. Past the 50 mark line. But there's a saving grace there. The kana was split in a makam shchita, within the accepted shchita zone. It wasn't actually shechted, but you can sort of incorporate it into the eventual cut. Hachalav makam shchita. Here, when he started out of the zone, it's a disqualifying element. It's a negative element. That will interfere with the eventual cut. So now we the machlekes. He says it's okay, they say it's not. But in the case where it was mostly cut properly in the proper zone, and then he veered out, all agree that's okay. Raiv determines the status of the shchita. In this case, majority was okay, it's okay. Aval shachat, shnei shlish, but if he started with 2/3 of a proper shchita in the proper, zone within the kana, v'higrim shlish, and then he tilted his knife out and veered outside the zone for just the last third, all agree, done is done. Divra kol kshera. Why? We have a Mishnah, Ruba shel echad kamayu. By cutting most of the siman, it's like cutting the entire siman. You don't need to cut the entire thing, and here it was mostly cut properly. Amali Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef responded to Rav Chizda, you're assuming that all agree Raiv is enough? Man, name alone. It's based on that Mishnah. Who's to say that Dahu, Ruba da Hasam, that Mishnah which allows Raiv, Lav Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Katanila, that it's not Rabbi Yossi speaking. Maybe it's just him speaking. Maybe Dilma Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Katanila. Maybe it's only him. It's his view. It reflects his shita. But the Rabbanos say you don't go with Raiv by shita. Amali Abai responds, why would you suggest that it's only his personal opinion? Atu kol Rubi de Alma. You think throughout the Torah, whenever Raiv is discussed, the concept of majority determining, I think that's his personal view. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, he's the one that's espousing it. Of course, it's universal. Everybody knows about Raiv. Amrle, he says, no, I didn't mean anywhere else. I meant over here by Shchita. Perhaps only he applies the concept of Raiv to Shchita, not to Rabbanon. So you can't assume anything. Amalei ano, ruba de shchita coming. I was specifically referring to halachos of roiv regarding shchita. The shaman de pligi. Since we know there's a machlekes in our Mishnah regarding the agrama when there's a roiv that's kosher, so who's to say that Mishnah that applies roiv to shchita is not him speaking, and only him? Perhaps the Rabbanan disagree. Okay, so bottom line is like this. Rav Huna quoted Rav Asi that when you have the hagrama at the very end of the shchita, so it was mostly okay but partially not. Rabbi Yosef read this as okay because of roiv. Rabbanan say not. But if the hagrama was the initiation of the cut, all agree it's possible. Rav Chizda went the other way, so it's just the opposite. If the hagrama is at the end, so you have a majority cut properly, all agree it's okay, roiv works. The machlekes is only when the hagrama was used to start the cut. Do we say it's okay because it's like a split kana, and he's just continuing on that track and he's completing it into a proper shchita? Do we say no? Here it's worse because the initial hagrama is a disqualifying element. Continues the Gemara. Lishna achrina amrila. There was actually another version of the same back and forth and exactly the opposite. The same concepts, but the names are sort of switched around. Who said what and who said who? Lishna achrina amrila. Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav Asi. So again we start with Rav Huna quoting Rav Asi. Machlekes. The discussion between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda regarding a partial hagrama is only shehigrim shlish v'shachat shnei shlish. He started. The hagrama was the initiation, and he concluded with 2/3 of a proper shchita. So what's the machlekes? As we said before, it's pretty much the same factors, just the arrangement here is a little switched. To Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Dasavar, he holds it's okay because the initial hagrama did no harm. It's like a split kana, partially split. It's okay. It's pending, and if he continues with the proper shchita, and the shchita brings it past the 50 mark line, it's okay. It's like the kana which is half split, and then eventually cut with the proper shchita. That's okay. Rabbanan Sabri, they disagree. Here it's way worse. Hagrama is a disqualifying. It's a negative element that interferes with the eventual shchita. Rabbanan Hasam Makam shchita, there it was merely split, but in the place of the shchita, so now he just continues on that line and he incorporates the initial cut into the concluding act of shchita. Here the hagrama, which was the initiation, was outside the makam shchita. That cannot be incorporated into the eventual cut. So that's the machlekes. But if the hagrama took place at the very end of a mostly successful shchita, all agree it's okay. Roiv was done properly. It's done. Aval shachat shnei shlish. But if you did a proper shchita on the first 2/3 of the simon, v'higrim shlish, and the hagrama only applied to the last third, done is done. Divrei HaKol all agree it's kshera. That's not, we have a Mishnah. As long as you cut through most, it's okay. Ruba yishlechad kamayu. Maskal Rav Chizda, comes Rav Chizda and asks on this, Man leimal and dahu ruba da'asam lav rabbeis rabbi da katanala. You bring a right from the Mishnah that roiv works. Who says that is not merely reflective of Rabbeis' shita? Duma Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Katanala, maybe it's only his opinion. But the Rabban would not allow roiv to work. Amali Rabbi Yosef. So he says, Atukul Rubi di Amma, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Katanala. You mean everywhere in the Torah where roiv is applied, it's only his shita? It's a universally, accepted concept, roiv in the Torah. Amar Leis, he says, no, of course, I agree. I meant specifically by shchita. No, ruba de shchita kamina. The shaman pligi. We know there's a machlekes regarding a roiv by shchita. Perhaps that Mishnah is reflective of his opinion and not the Rabbanan. So basically, according to this second version, it was the other way around. Rav Huna Rav Asi was pretty much with Rav Chizda's position, in the first version, and Rav Chizda disputed that. Okay, so now we move on to another case of a partial hagrama. Let's just summarize before we begin the next piece. So we had a Gemara where there was a partial hagrama. So according to the first version of Rav Asi, when he concluded with the hagrama, so it was roiv shechted properly, just the end was a problem. Rabbi Yossi says it's okay, roiv works. Rabbanan say no. Roiv is not a factor at play here because there's a special halacha called hagrama. If he veers out, even at the end, disqualifies the entire shchita. But if the hagrama was at the beginning, all agree it's possible. And Rav Chizda went the other way. He says, what do you mean? If the agrama is at the end, of course it works. Roiv, everybody agrees to roiv. Machlek is only when the agrama was at the beginning. Can we say, look, no harm was done yet, it's only a little bit of a improper cut, and then he just continues and sort of salvages it by doing a proper shchita. Can we use that rationale or not? Okay, so that was the discussion until this point. Continues the Gemara. What about a partial hagrama in the following manner? And the Mepharshim point out that we're sort of switching. Now it's Rav Huna quoting Rav, it's a different opinion, different type of case. Okay, so it's not related to the previous Gemara. Higrim shlish, v'shachat shlish, v'higrim shlish. First third was higrim. The last third was higrim in the middle, which is the most critical part of the cut, because as we explained, as soon as it gets to 51%, that's when the life ends. That's when the chiyus gets extracted. So that's the pivotal point of the shechita. At that point, he was actually shechting properly. Right? The first and last third were bad, but the middle was okay. How would you treat this case? Higrim shlish, v'shachat shlish, v'higrim shlish. Again, we have a machlekes. And machlekes is whether you focus on that pivotal 51% mark. If at that point he was engaged in a proper shechita in the proper location, you're good. According to another opinion, look at the sum total of this cut. Was 51% cut properly? No. So it's possible. Rav Huna Amar Rav Ksheira, it's okay. Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Treifa, it's no good. Rav Huna Amar Rav Ksheira, where was he holding at 0.51? He was shechting, that's good. Kinafka, chiyusa, when the chiyus left the animal, which means at 0.51%, b'shchita kanafka. It left because of the act of shchita that was occurring at that moment, so it's okay. Rav Yehuda Marav says, no, it's treifa. But inan ruva b'shchita. But like you need that 51% of the total cut here should be done with a proper shchita. You don't have it. Because it was 2/3 hagrama and only 1/3 shchita. Next case, exactly the opposite situation. Shachat shlish, v'higrim shlish, v'shachat shlish. Third, and a third, right? Shchita, higrim, and shchita. So here, the tables turn, right? Because the moment of nafka chiyusa, the moment of life termination, which is at 51, what was he engaged in? Hagrama. So that's if you look at the 0.51. But if you look at the totality, in totality, there was more shchita than none. It was shchita, hagrama, and then shchita, so it should be okay. So basically, these opinions should now switch around. Shachat shlish, v'higrim shlish, v'shachat shlish. Rav Yehuda Marav says it's ksheira, because it was mostly a proper shchita. So Rav Yehuda quoted Rav that it's okay. Also, shaylo le Rav Huna. They went to consult with Rav Huna, I guess assuming that he would go the other way. Amarlu treifa. So actually he said it's a treifa. Because at the mid-third, which is where the chiyus left, he was doing hagrama. And that's what the term is. Shama Rav Yehuda. When Rav Yehuda heard that Rav Huna opposed him in this one, ikbid, he was less than pleased. Amar, he says, he's always going against me. But whatever I say, he says the opposite. I say black, he says white. I say white. Tarifna, Amar, tarifna. When I say treifa, machsher, he's machsher. Machshana, whatever I qualify, tarif, he disqualifies. Rav Huna. So Rav Huna responded, yeah, he has a point. Shaper ka mikpad. I understand why he's unhappy. He's right. He has a point. Chada, first of all, the Yisham Shmiel Neider. In this instance, he actually has a proper source. He heard it from Rav. I didn't hear directly from Rav, I was just assuming. So he has one over me on that. Furthermore, he has a point because it was mostly done with a proper shchita. So why am I disqualifying it? So Chizda quickly followed up to him. He says, no, don't change your mind. Don't change your mind. Stick to your guns. Consider it a treifa. We turn to Talmud Beis, because otherwise you'll be inconsistent with your earlier ruling. Right? It's sort of a flip side of the earlier ruling. It's all about what's happening at 51%, right? Because otherwise, in the earlier case, you had said that it's kosher because he was doing shchita at that middle point. And if you're now going to change your mind, and you're going to require that mostly was done with a proper shechita. So in the first case, there was no proper shechita on most of it. Shechita was only in the middle third. So now you're going to disqualify that shechita. You're going to be destroying the first one. Why? Because pretty much it's a flip side, one of the other. It goes hand in hand. It's the same equation. Why did you accept that earlier shechita where the middle third was being done properly? Because it's all about when the chiyus leaves, which is at point 51, and it left while he was doing a proper cut. So this is pretty much the other side of that same equation. Hachanami here as well, where the hagrama was occupying the middle third, you're going to have to consider it a treifa. Kinafka chiyus, and the chiyus left, but hagrama kanafka, and it left while hagrama was taking place. So you can't pick and choose. You can't go one way there and one way here, right? You got to either stick to your guns in both cases, one way or the other, right? Iklur of Nachman l'Sura. Okay, so in a nutshell, the machlokes is what determines the totality of this experience. Is it what's occurring at the moment of 51%, or the sum total of this whole cut? If it was mostly b'shchita, it's okay, otherwise not. That's machlok between Rav Yehuda looks at the act of shchita, it has to be mostly a shchita, whereas Rav Huna looks at what's happening at the point of roiv. Iklu Rav Nachman l'Sura. Once Rav Nachman came to a town of Sura, Bo Minei, so the locals asked him, what would you say about this very question? A third, and a third. Bo Minei, they asked him, Shachat shlish, v'higrim shlish, v'shachat shlish. Okay? First third was a proper shchita, and so was the last. The middle was hagrama. Sounds familiar? Mao Amar Louis, he says, Lav Hainu Rabbi Elazar Baminyumi. Isn't this comparable to the halacha that Rabbi Elazar teaches us that it's no good? That it is good. The Amar Rabbi Elazar Baminyumi Shchita Hasui Kemastrik. A shchita that appears like a zigzag, in and out, like a teeth of a comb. Kshera, that's okay. And the Gemara is assuming that he meant this very case. He started the cut in the zone, he went out, came back. So it's okay. No, who says he's talking about this case? Maybe Rabbi Elazar was speaking where the shechita was in the proper area, within the zone. Just he cut in a funny way, he cut like a zigzag. But if he veers out of the makam shechita, who says he's even... b'makam shechita ma'ala, if he's speaking within the accepted zone, I mean, why even discuss this type of case? Of course it's okay. What's the need to discuss it? Well, perhaps there's room to think that it's not a proper cut. Shechita is only acceptable if it's a clean cut, not this funny zigzag. We require a shechita mefeiras, clear and open, clean. And in this case, where it's like zigzagging, it's not so. Kamash Malon, the answer is it's okay. But in any case, he's speaking within the accepted, zone of the trachea. But who says if he veers out, comes back in, that should be Yosef Rabbi Abba. Another story. Rabbi Abba was sitting acharei behind Rav Kahana, Yosef Kahana came into Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Kahana was sitting in front of Rabbi Yehuda, their Rebbe, and he asked his Rebbe a question. Yosef Rav Kahana was sitting and presenting to Rabbi Yehuda, to the Rebbe, what happens when it's a third, and a third? Exactly our case. Shachat shlish, v'higrim shlish, v'shachat shlish. First third was okay, so was the last. The middle was hagrama. Again, the same case as before. Amar Lacy says, it's all about the totality. Look at the sum total. Was it mostly shechted? Then it's okay. Shtasik shera. Okay, what about the other way around? Higrim shlish, v'shachat shlish, v'higrim shlish. He started and ended with hagrama, and the middle third was shchita. What's the halachas? He says, it's possible, which is consistent with what he said before. That's Rabbi Yehuda's shita. It's all about percentages. Next question, which we haven't really analyzed yet. Shachat v'mokim nekev. So we made reference to this before. We have the kana. It turns out that it was really partially split already, just pre-split. Okay, so you have the kana, and it's split, but only halfway, up until half. which is still okay. It's not considered a treifa. The sheicha takes his knife, slides it right into that split, and just pushes down until he pushes it past 50%. What's the halacha? So Ravida says it's okay. I mean, why not? Just because you only had to cut a little bit, okay, you got away with a little work. It's okay. Ultimately, he made the shechita happen. What if it's the other way around? He started on the whole part of the kana, shachad, paga b'nekav, and as he's cutting, suddenly he sees that it kind of split to the end. So again, he only cut a little bit, but ultimately, he split the whole kana because he connected to that pre-existing split. What's the status in this case? Amalei, shechitase psula. He says in this case it doesn't work. And soon we'll explain exactly what the difference is. I mean, you would think it's pretty similar to the previous case. Let's see. Azal Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba, upon hearing this verdict, went and related this interesting halacha, Amra Kamei, to Rabbi Elazar. Azar Rabbi Elazar, so he went, Amra, and he presented it, Kamei to Rabbi Yechanan, Amra Lei. So Rabbi Yechanan asked the obvious. What is the difference between two cases? Ma'ishna. What's the difference where the split was? Was it on top? Was it on bottom? That he cut from the split, or he cut into the split and he encountered the split? Amalei says, Rabbi Elazar says, I'll tell you the difference. Shachad v'makim nekev. If he put his knife into the nekev and just pushed it further, you know why it's okay? Nasa k'mi, it's comparable to a case of sheshachat oived kecham. Imagine a guy who is not qualified to do shechita cuts through half of the kana, no harm done yet. Yisrael comes along and just pushes it a little bit further to get to the roiv. It's okay because the Yisrael, terminated the life of the animal. He made the shechita happen. The guy just prepared that eventual shechita. But the Yisrael ultimately did the act of shechita. However, if it's the other way around, shachad upaga by nekev. If the shechid started cutting and he encounters that pre-existing split, which completes the cut, that's way worse. Because ultimately, who made it happen? The split. The split pushed it past 51. It wasn't a proper shechita. It's like the previous scenario in the reverse. It's like the Yisrael begins a shechita, cuts a little bit, and the guy comes and pushes it past 51. Ultimately, the guy made the shechita. It's possible. Okay, so Rabbi Yechanan, upon hearing this distinction and this comparing to the guy, he calls out on him. He says, why are you getting involved in something rationalizing by way of goyim and I don't understand that kind of explanation. What's the comparison? What's the connection to the guy? Amar Rava. So Rava actually backed up Rabbi Yechanan's criticism. I understand why. He dismissed them with guy. You know what he meant? You can't compare two stories. Bishlei Mahasam. We could fully understand the case of the actual Yid and the guy joining forces to do a shechita. I understand why over there it's possible. But that has no relation to our case. You know why? Bishlei Mahasam Medahavali the Yisrael Mishchat Ruba. In the case where the Yisrael initiated and the guy concluded, Yisrael should have done right. The kana was whole, it was available, it was meant to be cut. V'lo shachat, and the Yisrael failed to do right. He only did, 50%. And the guy pushed it past. So the chiyus of the animal was still there until the guy came along and concluded it. So it's possible. The chiyus left the animal by way of the guy's act. So ultimately, it's considered the shechita of a guy. It all relates to him. He did the punchline. But in our case, where he started cutting, and then he slides into the pre-existing cut, there was nothing more to cut. Right? Whatever he can cut, There's nothing missing. It's not like a full cut and the guy had to come. There's nothing to cut. It's split. So whatever was available to be cut, he did. So it's a full shechita. But in our case where he started cutting and suddenly his knife slides into this split and it's done. Look, mishchat shachit. The sheikh did whatever he could cut in that kana. Right? So whatever life force was there, he cut it away, that's it. Mali b'makim nekev, mali pagam nekev. What's the difference which way it goes? If he slid his knife into that split and just continued on, or he went the other way around, he cut and then encountered the split. Either way, he's the one who ultimately terminated the life force of the animal. And he cut whatever there's to cut. The life force of the animal was contingent upon that sort of connection. That was severed, so he did it. Ultimately, we have a fully cut kana, done by Yisrael. Mali b'makim nekev, mali pagam nekev. So either way, it's okay. So he disagrees with this distinction. He says, very different than the case of the guy. Here, all agree it's okay. Okay, so again, in conclusion, we have various hagrama arrangements. Hagrama meaning a shechita outside the accepted zone, accepted range in the kana. We started with an explanation relating to the machlekes between Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and the Rabbanan. If it was roiv properly, but just a little bit, it was hagrama. Rabbi Yossi says it's okay, roiv is acceptable. Rabbanan say no, it's not. According to one approach, machlekes is only when the hagrama was at the end. Machlekes is whether we follow roiv. And according to the other approach, in that case, all agree it's okay. Machlekes is when the hagrama was at the beginning. Shall we say it's like just a split kana and he's continuing and bringing it to the point of shechita? Do we say here it's worse because hagrama is out of the zone? It's worse. It's a negative factor which interferes. And then we went on to a case of third, and a third, where according to one approach, it's all about what's happening at point 51. Is he doing shechita at that point? It's okay, otherwise not. According to the other approach, it's about the sum total of what happened. If it's mostly cut properly, it's okay, otherwise not. We had an interesting machlekes in a case where there was a nekev, according to some shitas. It doesn't matter whether the nekev was the start of the cut, at the end of the cut, or the other shita, it does make a difference. Says the Mishnah, so we know that by a bird, typically you do shechita as well. Shechita from the neck, right? But if it's a carbon, then the process changes. It's called malika. The kohen takes his fingernail and slits off the head of the bird, but from the back of the neck. So we're going to compare the act of shechita vis-a-vis the act of malika, and highlight all the distinctive elements between them. So shechita can be done either from the front of the neck or even the sides of the neck, not the back of the neck. Hamoilik, however, he does malika in any area aside from the actual back, for instance, the sides of the neck. Milika is psul. Hashaycha ben oiref, he does shechita from the back. Shechita is psula. Hamoilik ben oiref, he does milika in the back of the neck. That's fine. Milika is kshera. Hashaycha ben atzavar, shechita is kshera. Shechita is meant to be done from the neck. That's okay. Hamoilik ben atzavar, milika is psula. Milika on the neck is no good, because malika and shechita are exact opposites. Shekol ha'oiref kosher malika. The oiref is acceptable for malika. V'chalat tzavra kosher shechita. For shechita, you have to do it in the tzavra. Nimsa turns out that it's a flip side equation, right? Nimsa kosher b'shechita, the area which is kosher for shechita, namely the neck, possible malika, is not acceptable for malika. Kasha malika, the back of the neck, which is the appropriate location for malika, possible shechita, is possible for shechita. Says the more my oiref. The term oiref in the Mishnah, what is that referring to? Ilema oiref mamash. Is it the oiref mamash, which means to say the back of the head? Right? So we have the face of the bird, the back of the head, and then we go down to the neck. You have the front of the neck, the back of the neck. So what is oiref? Is the back of the head, which is the opposite of the face of the bird? Ilem oiref mamish. And you're going to do malika there? My area sheichet. Why point out that shchita there is not acceptable? Even malika in that area is not acceptable. Mimul arpai amar achmana. The pasuk in describing malika describes it as mimul arpai, next to the back of the neck, meaning below the back next to the back of the head, the back of the neck, right? Amar achmana, says the pasuk, below arpai, not the actual back of the head. Ella my oiref. What then does the Mishnah mean? Oiref mimul oiref, the back of the neck, which is opposite, which is a continuum with the back of the head. As we find in the next part of the Mishnah, kol oiref kashel malika. Kol oiref kashel malika. What does that kol oiref mean? Kol means the extension of the oiref, the back of the neck, which is below the oiref. Menan immediately, how do we know that in fact malika takes place over there? Tan Rabban, we have a rice. The malika is mimul arpai, which means mul, the area that it's next to the haroyas oiref. Mul means it's next to the back of the neck. As we find in the pasuk, where he was complaining about Klal Yisrael that was camped, next to him. Klal Yisrael is opposite me, next to me, right? So you see that mul doesn't mean on; it means right. Rashi says we see from here that mul is lav olav mamashu. Doesn't mean on; it means within range that you see him, because they weren't living right on. They weren't sitting on balak. It means they were sitting at a distance, close enough that he can see them. So you see that mimul arpai likewise doesn't mean on the oiref. It means opposite. It means next to the oiref. Likewise, we find the pasuk kiponu elai oiref v'leipanim. My children, Klal Yisrael, turn their backs to me rather than facing me face to face. So you see, the oiref is the back. What's the point of the second pasuk? What's that adding? Perhaps you'll ask. Okay, we know mimul arpa means next to the oiref. What is oiref? The term oiref itself, what is that? How do you define it? How do we define the word oiref? We don't even know what that is. The neda mul didehecha, that we can then figure out the mul of the oiref, where that is. Tashma comes the second pasuk, that oiref is the back of the face, back of the head. Tashma kipono like oiref leiponim. They turn their back and not their face. Evidently, the oiref is the back of the face, the back of the head. Machlal the oiref la leiponim. Apparently, oiref is the back of the face. So there's a face. Behind that is the back, is the oiref of that face, and below that is the mul arpai, we do the malika. Continues the Gemara. Amri b'nei Rabbi Chia, the sons of Rabbi Chia, whose name were Yehuda and Chizkiah, presented as follows. This relates back to the Mishnah, where we learned that, in contrast to shchita, which takes place at the front of the neck, malika is from the back, and shchita from the back is no good. Rashi explains in the Mishnah, because you know what happens? First he encounters the spinal cord, the backbone, and by severing those elements, now the bird is a treifa. Severely injured, totally a non-candidate for shchita. You can't permit it by way of shchita. It's already a treifa. And that's why shchita from the back does not work, but malika from the back works. That's the way malika is meant to be. Come the Bnei Reb Chia and tell us, mitzvahs malika, that even by malika, you're meant to ensure that there's no treifa issues. How? By twisting the simanim to the back of the neck. So that when you do malika, you encounter the simanim first, before you had a chance to make it a treifa. Mitzvah's malika, the mitzvah is to be machzor simanim lacharei oiref, to twist the simanim, food pipe, the windpipe, to the back of the neck. Umaylik, and do malika in that fashion. Now there are two ways to learn. Some say af machzor. You could do it. You don't need to, but you could. Because even if you don't, and you actually cut through the backbone first, that's okay. That's the way malika was meant to be. Vika the Amri, some learn, machzor dafka, you have to twist it to the back first, to avoid any treifa issues. Mistavra, the Gemara concludes, it is more probable to say, like the first way, Command Amar, like the opinion of Af Machzer, you could. You don't need to, but you could. But even if you don't, that's a fine Malika. And Rashi, the Mishnah actually explains how it works. He says, because although in terms of, you break it down frame by frame, you first cut through the spinal, the backbone, and then only then the siman. It doesn't matter. We look at the whole experience as one continuum, one uninterrupted procedure. And ultimately, it was shechted properly. How do we know this is so? How do we know that by Malika you typically don't have the simanim in the back? You don't need to. Mimai, midiktani. Look at the Mishnah. It says, Hashechet ben ha'erev shutasi psula. If he did shchita, with a knife from the back, it's possible. Hamoylik ben ha'erev milkasek shera. Malika from the back is okay. Now, the whole reason for disqualifying a back shchita is due to the treifa concern, because you've severed the spinal, the backbone first. Hold it. We're talking that the simanim are there first, because he twisted the simanim to the back. We turn to the next page. If you're going to tell me machzer dafka, that every malika entails simanim first, simanim to the back, and that's when you count it first. So why does the Mishnah say if he does shchita with a knife, it's puzzle? The whole issue is that it's a trade. It's not, because he encounters the simanim first. Ma yiri moilek. Why specify moilek as being good and not sheichet? Afilu sheichet nami, even if you should choose to do shchita. It's a regular bird, right? Took a knife, but he did it from the back. It's okay, provided the simanim were encountered first. Elo la shmami no af machzer. Apparently, by Milika, he need not twist the simanim to the back. And that's what the Mishnah is talking about. A case where everything was arranged naturally, nothing was manipulated. He didn't twist the simanim to the back. And on that, the Mishnah says, that's why if he does shchita from the back, it's possible, because it's a treifa, as opposed to Malika, which is meant to be that way. Amar Rabbi Yanai, Yikablu haroivin es tshuvasa. The roivin, the youngsters, the bnei Rav Chia, will now receive their refutation. We're going to refute them from the Mishnah. We're going to see that you're not supposed to manipulate the bird. Tani, look at the Mishnah. Mishnah concludes with an interesting formula, which is almost sounds like a repetition. The Tani, it says Nimtza. Turns out that Malika and Shchita are flip sides, right? Nimtza, Kasha b'Shchita, what's good for Shchita is possible Malika is no good for Malika, and vice versa. Kasha b'Malika is possible Shchita. What's the Mishnah coming to add? To exclude what? What are we coming to disqualify? Lav l'motei, machzer simana. Machzer simana, l'chayra erev delay. Apparently the Mishnah is telling us that flipping the simanim to the back is not acceptable for Malika. Malika is meant to be done the way that the bird is naturally arranged. So although if he does that, flip to the back and does shchita with a knife, it's kasha, because the whole point was shchita in the back is no good because of the treifa. In this case you avoid the treifa issue, but Malika in that manner doesn't work. Torah says do Malika from the back, the way the back is situated, without manipulation. Unlike Bnei Rav Chia, who allow turning the simanim to the back from Malika. Well, says the Gemara, not so quick. Amar Rabba bar Bachan Maloi, maybe the Mishnah is not alluding to this case. L'muter shein v'tzipar, the Mishnah is coming to exclude using something attached, like a tooth or like a fingernail, which is disqualified for shchita. You can't use that for shchita. Shchita needs to be done with a detached utensil, as we learned back on the Yud. Whereas by Malika, you could. That is the essence of Malika, snapping the head off by way of the Kohen's thumbnail. So maybe that's what the Mishnah means. The fingernail, which is good for Malika, is not going to work for Shchita. Shen v'tzipar, to discuss these items, but the Had Yaktani, we've discussed them openly earlier. Why the repetition? Elam Rabbi Yirmi, you're right. L'muter malacha maybe. Mishnah's come to exclude something else. The back and forth motion. That only by Shchita you do it that way. By Malika you just press down and you snap off the head. That's good if you say that back and forth motion by Malika is no good. Okay, then that will work. Elaman Amar Kasha, but the one who holds that just like the back and forth movement works by Shchita, works by Malika as well, then you're out of business, and this whole inference doesn't work. The answer is Bnei Rab Chia. Apparently the Bnei Rab Chia, who have to apply the Mishnah to this case, because otherwise it disqualifies their whole halacha. Savr l'kamandama, they hold like the opinion, Malika apostle. You can't do Malika with a back and forth motion. And that's exactly what the Mishnah is coming to disqualify, but not a case of manipulating the simanim to the back, which according to them is fine. Talking of which, Amar Rav Kahana, mitzvahs Malika, kaitetz v'yered. How do you do Malika properly? You snap with your fingernail, right? Straight down, a clean snap, without the back and forth motion. And that's the way it's fulfilled. Now, Savar Rabban Lameimar, Rabban figured only this way. A clean snap down. Kaitetz v'yered in, snapping down, yeah. But swinging back and forth like a knife wouldn't work. Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah says no, and here we have these two opinions. Koshken, of course, it's even better. The Melcha maybe going back and forth, but Malika is okay, it's kosher, because the Torah only highlights certain elements that are different by Malika than by Shchita. One is fingernail instead of a knife. Number two is location, back instead of the front. The Torah doesn't specify snap as opposed to sawing back and forth. If anything, it's better. It's more similar to Shchita. Umaizu mitzvasa, older of Kahana, use the term zui mitzvasa, which sounds like only a snap down works. Ema will learn af. Also, zui mitzvasa, it could also be done this way, but of course, if you go back and forth, it's fine. Okay, so let's just summarize this last piece. We had a Mishnah and a Gemara, contrasting Shchita and Malika. There are many differences. One is utensil, Malika is fingernail, Shchita is by way of a knife. Second is location, Shchita is on the neck, front or sides. Malika specifically in the back of what? Back of the neck, which is in close proximity to the back of the head. Let's learn from the Psukim. Bnei Rab Chia allowed, or perhaps insisted, that even by Malika, he twists the simanim to the back. The Gemara refuted that. And regarding the actual Malika motion, we have a machlekes, whether it's a snap down or back and forth as well. Okay, all the best to you, and aslach hatzlacha.